I'm not sure where that finished off, so we were reading about this. We're starting ancient history. Again, yes. But we're talking about this part, the mound builders. That's cool. Kitchen middens, lake dwellers. Someone had highlighted Claude's story of primitive man, the ancient Stone Age, and the Age of Metals. Very interesting stuff, for sure. Really fun to learn about. All right, ancient history, the study of history. History is the narrative of what civilized man has done. It deals with those social groups called states and nations. Just as biography describes the life of individuals, so history relates the rise, progress, and decline of human societies. History cannot go back of written records. In the early life of every people, before the use of writing becomes general, many legends and stories are passed down by word of mouth from age to age. Traditional information of this nature soon grows untrustworthy, often absolutely false, like a piece of village gossip that has been many times retold. Until men have written records, it is impossible for them to keep a full and accurate account of their achievements. Written records are of two sorts, books and inscriptions. We still possess many books composed of antiquity. Thus, the sacred scriptures of the Hebrews collected in the Old Testament are our chief source of information for the history of this famous people. The history of the Babylonians who lived in Western Asia is written on thin clay tablets of which we have entire libraries. The dry climate of the Nile Valley has preserved to this day thousands of Egyptian manuscripts made of fragile papyrus paper. The Greeks and Romans at first employed the same material for their writings, but afterwards they used the more lasting parchment prepared from sheepskin. Nearly all the books that they have left to us are parchment manuscripts. Besides books, there are written records known as inscriptions. Yeah, that's definitely a harsh. When I was a kid, we had to write our thoughts on sheepskin. That's horrible, Grandpa. Right, my goodness. Besides books, there are written records known as inscriptions. These are usually cut in stone, but sometimes we find them painted over the surface of a wall, stamped on coins, or impressed upon metal tablets. Epitaphs on the gravestones make up the greatest number of inscriptions. Epitaphs have been popular, yes, in class recently. We just did a whole section on epitaphs. Very interesting. Quite enthralling, to say the least, yes. About 40,000 of them have come down to us from the Romans alone. A large part of our knowledge of antiquity is obtained from such records. The historian also makes use of remains, such as statues, coins, ornaments, weapons, utensils, and above all, stone monuments. Many ancient peoples were great builders. They raised palaces for their kings, tombs for the dead, fortresses, bridges, temples, arches. Some of these monuments still survive as memorials of the past. For example, the massive pyramids of Egypt, the Greek temples of light and graceful outline, and the Roman aqueducts which stretch for miles across the land. History, based on written records, begins in different countries at widely varying dates. A few books and inscriptions found in Egypt date back 3 or 4,000 years before Christ. The Annals of Babylonia are scarcely less ancient. In other parts of the world, there is no such high antiquity. Trustworthy records in China and India do not go beyond 1000 BC. For the Greeks and Romans, the commencement of the historic period must be placed about 750 BC. The inhabitants of Northern Europe did not come into the light of history until near the opening of the Christian era. You didn't know that? No? Good. You're going to go look more into that part? Yes, it's a very interesting part of history for sure. It seems to be total oblivion to some. It's very strange to us what we're learning ourselves more and more. Just levels of awareness, I guess, and some call it an onion. Yeah, we do the best we can for sure. Prehistoric Peoples, Section 2, Chapter 1. In studying the historic period, our chief concern is with those peoples whose ideas or whose deeds have aided human progress and the spread of civilization. 6/7 of the Earth's inhabitants now belong to civilized country, and these countries include the best and largest regions of the globe. But when ancient history begins some 3 or 4,000 years before Christ, civilization was confined within a narrow area, the river valleys of Western Asia and Egypt. The uncounted centuries before the dawn of history make up the prehistoric epoch when savagery and barbarism prevailed throughout the world. It has become possible in recent years to learn something about the men who lived during the ages before history. They left behind them no written records. There are neither books nor inscriptions for our guidance. We must depend on prehistoric remains which have been found in nearly every part of the world. Primitive men often made their homes beneath overhanging cliffs and in deep caverns, which gave protection against the wind, the rain, and wild animals. Rock shelters are especially numerous in France and England, where many have been explored. The examination of a cave sometimes reveals a few human skeletons or skulls, and very often the bones of extinct animals such as the mammoth and woolly rhinoceros. The cave deposits are also rich in articles of human workmanship, in stone axes, knives, arrowheads, barbed harpoons, and bone needles. In Denmark, there are huge kitchen middens on the sites of ancient villages and camping places. These artificial hills, sometimes a quarter of a mile long, are several hundred feet wide and really refuse heaps, containing myriads of oyster shells and bones of animals, birds, and fish. Mingled with this rubbish are implements of stone, bone, and wood, together with pieces of pottery and other things of human manufacture. What's that? It said refuse heaps, R-E-F-U-S-E, refuse. Refuse heaps. So that was mounds, kind of, I guess, containing oyster shells, bones, stuff like that. In Switzerland and northern Italy, we find remains of prehistoric lake dwellers who raised their huts on platforms over the water, as some savages still build today. The piles on which the platforms rest are pointed tree trunks driven into the bottom of the lake to a depth of several yards. The mud about the piles contains thousands of objects, including animal bones, seeds of various plants and fruits, shreds of coarse cloth, fragments of pottery and leather, even wooden laths for shoes. Primitive men erected stone monuments and mounds of earth in all the continents. These structures served as tombs where the dead were laid away, surrounded by their weapons, tools, and ornaments. Such things were supposed to be necessary for life within, or perhaps beyond the grave. The study of prehistoric remains is not only our means of picturing the childhood of man. We can learn a great deal from existing savages and barbarians who make implements and weapons, build houses and boats like those of primitive men. Even the customs and beliefs of modern aborigines may resemble those of early men. Hence, what we discover about the wild Australians, the African Negroes, or the American Indians throws light on the ages before history. The prehistoric epoch is Section 3, Chapter 1, the prehistoric ages. The prehistoric epoch is commonly divided according to the character of the materials used for tools and weapons into the age of stone and the age of metals. The one is the age of savagery. The other is the age of barbarism or semi-civilization. Man's earliest implements were those that lay ready to his hand. A branch from a tree served as a spear. A thick stick in his strong arms became a powerful club. The bones or tusks of animals may often have proved dangerous weapons when wielded by some prehistoric Samson. Later, perhaps, came the use of a hard stone, such as flint, which could be chipped into the forms of arrowheads, axes, and spear tips. The first stone implements were so rude in shape that it is difficult to believe them of human workmanship. They may have been made several 100,000 years ago. After countless centuries of slow advance, primitive men learned to fasten wooden handles to their stone tools, and also to use such materials as jade and granite, which could be ground and polished into a variety of forms. More durable as well as more beautiful tools and weapons then came into existence. Although the best of these stone implements must seem to us very crude and unsatisfactory, their use continued throughout the greater part of the prehistoric period. Every region of the world has had a Stone Age. Its length is reckoned not by centuries but by millenniums. Stone implements were not entirely given up after the introduction of metals. At the present day, we still have our gunflints, grindstones, and burnishers. The survival of stone objects has sometimes been due to motives and superstition of religion. Thus, the Egyptians employed stone knives for embalming the dead centuries after the metals had found their way into the valley of the Nile, and the priests of ancient Mexico slaughtered the sacrificial victims with blades of stone, though for other purposes copper had been long in common use. Some stone axes and arrowheads are often worn by ignorant people as charms against witchcraft and poison. Sometimes these objects are called thunderbolts and are thought to have fallen from heaven. Right, so someone wants me to mention that it's me wearing those things, right? I was wearing an arrowhead, a crystal, an amethyst, right, gold. They do actually provide some kind of property. Right, but if someone believes in the silly things like, oh, this is actually going to protect me from evil, so I'm safe and I can do bad things because I'm wearing protection, or I can walk into dangerous places untouched because I'm protected by. Right, so just discussing those things and understanding those kind of ideologies really helps a lot of people. Thank you for mentioning that, I agree. I'm wearing one of my crystals right now, actually. Yeah. I got my crystal on. Yes. Nana nana boo boo. Some stone axes and arrowheads are often worn by ignorant people as charms against witchcraft and poison. Sometimes these objects are called thunderbolts. Well, that goes into, too, belief. You should never judge and think, oh, because someone is wearing something, they believe that. Right, that gets dangerous. So when you can start applying that into how that happens still today across the board, and how a lot of these simple understandings can help prevent a lot of that silliness and help us to enjoy life and learn and flourish here the best we can. Sure. Sometimes these objects are called thunderbolts and are thought to have fallen from heaven. The peasants of Scotland and Ireland call them elf shot, supposing that they are shot by elves or fairies at men and cattle. Such quaint beliefs have great vitality. Like a silver bullet, sure, yeah. It's a good movie. Yes, it is. Very good movie. The Age of Metals compared with its predecessor. You like the book better? You'd be surprised, or not, how much I hear that. The Age of Metals compared with its predecessor covers a brief expanse of time. The knowledge and use of metals date back not much before the dawn of history. The earliest civilized people, the Babylonians and Egyptians, when we first become acquainted with them, appear to be passing from the use of stone implements to those of metal. The coming of the metals brought about a revolution, the greatest that the world had seen or that it will ever see. The history of civilization has been declared to be the history of the metals in the hands of man. No wonder that round these treasures of earth, gathered from the glittering sands or smelted from the deep rock, there grew up many a legend was told of wondrous smiths, such as the Greek Hephaestus, Vulcan, Hephaestus, Vulcan, whose forge was in the smoking crater of Mount Etna, or the Hebrew Tubal Cain, who lived in the 7th generation after Adam, and was a master in all copper and iron work. Tubal Cain. Look at that. It's early Roman bar money. A bar of copper marked with the figure of a bull dates from the 4th century BC. No? As someone in class was just saying, that's really cool. They love the history of coins and stuff, and they've never seen anything like it. Really? That's cool. Yeah, this book was 1913. Yes. Some more coins. You like coins? Yeah, pretty cool, huh? $19.13. Good, thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. Probably So far today, let's see, we've had water, coffee, we made a protein shake with oatmeal, coconut, and dark chocolate almond milk. It was a trifecta, very yummy. What kind of soup are we gonna make? We have water going at the moment. We like to use the crock pot. Do you ever use the crock pot for your pasta dishes? So much easier. We got red lentil pasta. We're gonna blend up a sauce. Yeah. This week we're doing the eggplant, cashew, and red onion. Has our three major ingredients for the sauce. Yeah, we're playing with those three, and then we add in different stuff, and everyone shares their different concoctions and flavors. Some go tangy, some go sweet with it, which is interesting. Some make a sweet sauce. Yeah, almost like a stir fry type, sweet, tangy. Someone made a cold sauce with it, like a dill, and did a cold pasta salad. Sounded really good, and they added olives to it. So good. Cold pasta salad with olives is one of our favorite. Very good for you too. Especially the red lentil and the brown rice pastas. If you try to lay off the gluten, or you don't want something so heavy, especially during the summer, or if you're having to work and move around a lot, sometimes those heavy pastas can really just do you a disservice. You'll notice a huge difference in your energy, and it does the opposite, right? I know, and you think, oh my gosh, I wish I had known this before. Silly us. It is pretty incredible. We're very lucky. Well, you like to hold on to some staples, build on that, transform. And we love original, keep it simple type stuff as well. And you can't really do too much to an apple pie, right? Apple pie is apple pie, leave it alone. Apple crisp is apple crisp. I'm not going to do anything fancy to it. Smack some yogurt or ice cream on it, or just eat it as the way it is. It's very good. I mean, even that, to be able to make such a lovely dish, there's years of things changing and transforming there when you look at the ingredients and capabilities, cooking, apparatuses. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, you think it wasn't that long ago to be able to just bake a loaf of bread, right? This poor provincial town. Yes, thank you. Welcome. The blue is very blue, yes. It does seem very vibrant. Yeah. It's beautiful.